you see behind me is my wife's choice of art.
Oh, that's nice.
That's really nice.
Well, there's a naked picture, so just so you know.
I didn't see that. Now I'm going to look for it. ADD.
Okay.
It's
So
like,
Sam,
yes.
like we can't thank you enough. You are our first interview, and I think you're our most important one because you have agreed to like come on, not only like in the moment of coronavirus, but you're the funniest guy to do it for us because you're flipping hilarious. So that's why we chose you.
That's a ton of pressure.
Oh no, don't feel pressure.
Virus pressure.
Virus pressure. No, so Sam, just as an introduction, is a great friend of ours who used to live in Vancouver. A lot of people that follow our Instagram will know Sam and be excited to see him on here. And they moved to Seattle and we were desperately sad, but we always stay in touch and see each other in the summers and skiing and things like that. Anyway, we just wanted to find out, like, what the hell's going on? Like, how do you feel? You look great. You look totally great.
Tons of makeup, tons. No, it's good Zoom lighting.
Yeah.
So you want to hear our little history from the epicenter of Seattle?
Yes. How's that all going? How did it come about?
So we just found out that Sylvia, my wife, saw her doctor for a scheduled appointment on March 9th at 9 a.m. And the time's important because we just got a call or text from a friend who saw him at 4 p.m. March 9th. So Sylvia goes in on March 9th, 9 a.m. She's got, I guess it's just a normal scheduled appointment, but she's got sinus something or other. She's had allergies. So she gets him to do a sinus check. And that I think means poking around in the nose a bit. So whatever. He calls her on the 10th, the next day. We don't get that voicemail for 3 or 4 days because we actually never check our voicemail like most of us. And what he said on his voicemail was, I just got tested positive for COVID.
Oh, wow.
So we presume that he got it a couple of days prior to that. We think from his wife who'd been traveling in Europe. So the reason that 9 a.m. was important is by 4 p.m. when our friend went and had her appointment with him, he was in full PPE. And so clearly something had changed in his behavior and maybe somebody had told him, or maybe he'd clued in, or maybe he'd coughed, or I don't know what the heck happened. But Sylvia was unfortunately the unlucky recipient of the 9 a.m. Appointment. And so she, from the 9th to the 12th, when she thinks her symptoms started, it was bad allergy season here in Seattle. So she was sniffing and coughing and hacking and, from the husband's standpoint, complaining and bitching and moaning, and I'm disregarding and whatever. It's just allergy season. And on the 12th, though, she was very vigilant, or very, very clear about saying that she'd lost her sense of taste and smell, primarily because she couldn't even taste the margarita that I made her that night, which is a very unusual circumstance.
It is.
So, and I made it extra spicy. So from the 12th until about the 16th, something like that, she had no taste of no sense of taste, no sense of smell, and tightness of breath, going up and down stairs. She'd say she'd get tired, but we were like, still, this is kind of allergies. And then it was, I think, the 16th or 17th, an article came out in the New York Times that said there are symptoms that of this no taste, no smell thing that clued us in. And she went and got tested that day, and she went with a friend. The friend couldn't get tested because the friend didn't have the same level of, they tested both her temperature and fluid in her lungs. And Sylvia had enough fluid in her lungs to indicate pneumonia. Therefore, they did a COVID test and she was positive.
Wow.
Wow. And how does the testing work normally in Seattle right now? Is it pretty easy to go get a test?
No. So I'm assuming I'm positive, but I actually haven't had a test. They've told me I can't get a test. They've all said, just assume that you're positive because you've been in the mix of someone who is positive, and therefore assume that for your kids. So we just assume our whole household has been has gotten it, although the kids have shown no symptoms.
That's good.
And the test, you guys all have heard that those initial tests were sound kind of gross and brutal, like the big nasal swabs, not so fun. I still think you have to have a doctor's note, and you still have to show symptoms that are probably like you guys are going through to actually get the test, because they're still not widely available. And then the only thing I was going to say was, so we think her symptoms started on the 12th. I then went, I was still out and around, and our kids were still out and around. We still hadn't gotten the shelter in place order. So unfortunately, I think that we were probably spreading the virus for 3 or 4 days in the early beginning stages of March, which unfortunately I think, is what we're seeing in New York and what we're seeing in Seattle and what we're seeing everywhere.
Wow. So okay, speaking of that cough, what else? What outside of a dry cough, do you have the no taste, and do you have do you have a fever?
No, never had a fever. Never had couldn't find a damn thermometer, even though we've raised 3 kids. Like the thermometers like disappeared, just like the nose hair clippers and the
tweezers.
And the tweezers, yeah, all that stuff. Couldn't find one. Finally found one. Never had a fever, but started to get this cough, and then the cough kind of turned into, you'd cough and you'd get dizzy, and you'd cough and get dizzier, and then you'd get nausea. And so those were kind of my symptoms. And then the main thing was fatigue, though. You're just wiped out, tired.
Wow.
And so, and that's the biggest bummer, because I just think people who are alone, who get tired and can't get themselves to do anything, and then they get depressed, and you figure you finish everything on Netflix, and so yeah, it's a drag for people who I think who are suffering through it alone.
So if you're now quarantined at home, and how are you connecting with your doctor, and what are the doctors they're telling you to do in this phase right now? I guess your whole entire family.
So they were very communicative, and so, which was super nice. So on text, like texting him dumb questions, he was coming back pretty quickly. Turns out that was mainly because he was quarantined himself, so he had a lot of time on his hands.
Right.
He got out of quarantine after 14 days himself and put himself back in protective equipment, and is now back on the front lines in Seattle at his hospital. He's told us that from the onset of symptoms, you still got to stick to the 14-day regimen. And so my wife is on day 18 or 19. So we presume that she's got antibodies, and she could give blood if anybody could give an accurate test and determine that there were antibodies. She could probably be giving blood to be helpful if that was ever needed. I think the assumption, or the difficult part for me, was trying to figure out exactly when your first cough, is that a symptom? Your first day where you're feeling lousy, is that a symptom? So I don't really know exactly where I am in the whole, but I kind of believe it's, somewhere between 12 and 16 days or something like that. So they're saying as soon as the last symptom stops, you got to wait another 5 days in our regimen. But it's not like I can see anybody anyway. So
yeah,
I'm assuming it's going to kind of be somewhere between 14 and 21 days where you stay out of people's, you stay away from, everybody. And I've got an elderly mother who I haven't been able to see for 2 weeks. And so I'll add another week onto that to make it 21 days.
That's smart. Do you know of anybody else in your circle of friends in Seattle that have been, have symptoms or have been confirmed to have COVID-19?
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, so we feel like we were first in our little friend group to get sick, and so at first you're popular because everybody's texting you to ask you how you're doing, right. And then all of a sudden, then you're a carrier, and maybe you gave it to me, and so the texts are not as nice anymore. So we now have texts coming in of, okay, so now I've had a cough for 3 days. Tell me what was the next symptom. So I kind of, are you tired? Are you getting, the fever thing is a weird one because even though everybody seems to be using fever and temperature as the ultimate arbiter of or metric, since I never had a fever, I kind of figure that's not a useful metric. But to answer your question, yes, we're now getting a few friends who we were with who are exhibiting symptoms and are contemplating going to get tested and just haven't figured out where they can get a test yet, or if they've got enough symptomology to go get a test.
How about the kids? How are they? I mean, because we're adults here. How are they handling things? Because they're in their teens, aren't they?
Yeah. They're in their teens. They're going bananas like all of our kids, right? And they've shown no symptoms. And I'd say in Washington State, the one thing that was, I think, maybe late in coming was the shelter in place. I think we probably should have gone down a week earlier, because the kids, frankly, were still seeing friends and practicing social distancing. But if you're an 18-year-old kid, are you're playing beer pong or something like that? Are you really social distancing? I don't know. So I think that we probably should have gone down a week earlier and cut out that kind of movement. But from what I can tell, we've got people who are telling us in Washington State, at least, that the curve is supposed to peak on the 19th of April or thereabouts. And if you believe that statistic, then I think we're kind of on top of it. And so whatever the kids were doing in terms of not practicing great practices will run its course. And in our case, we just haven't seen any symptoms.
Okay.
Well, that's really, like, honestly, it's really helpful kind of to see you, because we know you and you seem pretty awesome. Like, I can't, you're not coughing up a lung, which is really nice. And, we were in touch with you guys as you went through this, and sort of saw that you were at least having kind of a mild version, which is nice to see and good for you guys. And I hope your mom's going to be okay, and everybody else.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it. I think it's optimistic. Most of us will get through it fine. I just, but it is no joke. It is super contagious. And we all know that, but yeah, no, I think we're through it. So we'll hope everybody gets through it okay.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Thanks,
Okay.
Sam. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys. Nice seeing you.
Hi to everyone.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.